Have you ever held a newborn baby and then felt it slip away forever? 14-year-old Mary did. She counted 10 little fingers, 10 little toes, whispered a name she'd chosen weeks before, and thought that maybe, just maybe, life had finally given her a reason to smile again. Then a woman in dark clothing entered the room and said simply, "It's time." Mary begged, "Please, just one more minute with her." But the woman's face remained cold as stone. Now, Mary never saw her child again. This wasn't the Dark Ages. This wasn't some medieval horror story from centuries past. This was 1964 in Ireland, a time when radios played the Beatles, when televisions were becoming common, when the modern world was in full swing. Yet young girls were still being hidden away behind stone walls, forced to work endlessly in silence, and losing everything they loved. This is Mary's story, but it's also the story of 30,000 girls and the system that tried to erase them all from history. September 2014, Tuam, County Galway, Ireland. Construction workers were preparing the ground for a new children's playground when one of them struck something solid beneath the soil. At first, they thought it might be old pipes or foundation stones from previous buildings. They were wrong. Forensic experts and archaeologists were called to the site. What they uncovered over the following weeks would shock Ireland and the world, forcing an entire nation to confront a dark chapter of its past that many had tried to forget. Beneath the soil, in what appeared to be an old septic system, were the remains of hundreds of infants and young children, tiny bones that had been placed there without ceremony, without markers, without any acknowledgement that these little lives had ever existed. The site was located beside what had once stood as St. Mary's Mother and Baby Home, an institution run by the Bon Secours religious order. Between 1925 and 1961, thousands of unmarried mothers had been sent there, and hundreds of their babies had died within its walls. Local historian Dr. Catherine Corliss, who had spent years researching the home, explained to reporters these little ones were treated as if they never existed. No proper burials, no records given to families, no markers to remember them by. Just nothing. The discovery raised immediate questions. How could this happen in a modern society? How could so many children disappear without anyone noticing? And most importantly, how many mothers never knew what happened to their babies? To understand how this tragedy was possible, we need to go back 50 years earlier to 1964, to a 14-year-old girl named Mary O'Brien, whose life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. Before we continue with this powerful and emotional chapter of history, I want to ask you something. If you believe in bringing hidden stories to light, if you think the forgotten voices of the past deserve to be heard, please take just a moment to like this video and leave a comment below. Your support doesn't just help this channel grow, it helps ensure that stories like Mary's are never forgotten again. It tells YouTube's algorithm that these historical truths matter, that they deserve to reach more people. So please hit that like button now. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if this story moves you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Now, let's return to Dublin, Ireland in 1964, to the day that changed Mary O'Brien's life forever. Dublin, Ireland, 1964. Mary O'Brien was 14 years old. She lived in a narrow brick house with her mother, her two younger brothers, Michael, 11, and Thomas, 9, and her uncle Patrick, who had moved in after her father's passing years earlier. Life was modest. Her mother worked long hours at a textile mill, returning home tired but determined. Mary helped by caring for her brothers, preparing meals, and keeping the home tidy. Despite the struggle, she dreamed of something bigger. Books were her escape. Every week she visited the library, disappearing into stories of distant cities and strong women, teachers, nurses, explorers. She imagined herself teaching children how to read, lighting the same spark she carried inside. Her teacher once said, "You have potential, Mary. Keep working hard. You might earn a scholarship." Those words became her secret treasure. But one night in February, everything shifted. Mary awoke suddenly and felt something was wrong. Someone was in the room. The air was heavy with fear, and her heart raced. What followed was something no child should ever experience, an act of deep betrayal that shattered her trust and innocence. It was something she could never fully speak of again. The next morning she stood in the kitchen, pale and trembling. Her mother, sipping tea, noticed her silence. "Mom," Mary whispered, "something happened last night." Her mother frowned. "What do you mean?" Mary's eyes filled with tears. "Uncle Patrick, he came into my room. He did something that wasn't right." For a moment her mother froze. Then her expression hardened. "You're imagining things," she said sharply. "No, Mum, I'm not." Her mother rose, voice trembling with anger. "Don't accuse him. He's helped us since your father passed. Without him, we'd have nothing." Mary tried to explain, but her mother wouldn't listen. "Not another word," she warned, her tone final. Mary lowered her head, tears falling silently. That night she lay awake, wishing it had been just a dream, but she knew it wasn't. Over the next weeks, the tension in the house grew unbearable. Her uncle avoided her eyes, her mother avoided the truth, and Mary withdrew into herself, quiet, distant, and afraid. By spring, Patrick announced he was moving to another city for work. The day he left, the air in the house felt lighter, but inside, Mary felt only emptiness, because by then, something within her had already broken. June 1964. Mary woke up feeling sick for the third morning in a row. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was retching over the toilet, her stomach heaving even though there was nothing left to bring up. When she finally emerged, pale and shaking, her mother was standing in the hallway, arms crossed. "Mary, what's wrong with you? Are you ill?" "I don't know, Mom. Just my stomach, maybe something I ate." But even as Mary said it, a cold fear was beginning to creep into her mind. She'd been feeling strange for weeks now. Her body felt different. Her clothes were getting tighter around the waist. "No," she told herself. "It can't be that. I'm only 14. Her mother's eyes narrowed. "Come here." Mary walked forward slowly, her heart beginning to pound. Her mother reached out and pulled at Mary's dress, examining her carefully. She placed her hand on Mary's stomach, which had developed a small but unmistakable swell. The color drained from her mother's face. "Mary," her voice was barely a whisper now. Are you expecting a child?" The room seemed to tilt. Mary's legs felt weak. She wanted to deny it, to say it was impossible. But the truth was there in her mother's horrified expression. Tears began falling. "Mom, I didn't want this. Oh my God. Oh my God." Her mother stepped back, one hand over her mouth. "Who was it? Who did this to you?" Mary couldn't answer. Her throat had closed up. "Was it that boy from down the street, the one I saw you talking to outside the shop?" "No, Mom, it wasn't." "Then who?" Her mother's voice was rising now, panic and anger mixing together. "Tell me right now, Mary." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "Answer me this instant." Mary's voice came out broken, barely audible. "It was Uncle Patrick." Her mother froze completely. For one brief moment, just one single heartbeat, Mary saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, perhaps, or maybe the horrible realization that she had failed to protect her own daughter. But then her mother's expression hardened again. The moment passed. "You're lying," she said, but her voice shook. "You're lying to protect yourself." "Mom, no, I'm not. Patrick would never. He's family. You must have encouraged him somehow." "I'm 14. Mary's voice cracked. "I didn't encourage anything. He came to my room multiple times. I tried to tell you. Shut your mouth." Her mother's face had gone red now. "Do you have any idea what this means? Everyone will know. The neighbors, the church, your brother's schools. Everyone will know our business. They'll think we're trash. They'll think I raised a—" She couldn't even finish the sentence. Mary watched as her mother began pacing frantically, wringing her hands. She wasn't thinking about Mary's pain or fear. She was thinking about reputation, about what people would say, about scandal and shame. Finally, her mother stopped pacing and looked at Mary with frightening determination. "I know what to do," she said quietly. "I'll telephone Father Murphy. He'll know how to handle this properly. He'll know what to do." Mary felt ice forming in her stomach. "What do you mean? What's he going to do?" But her mother had already turned away, heading toward the telephone in the hallway. That single phone call sealed Mary's fate. 2 days later, Mary heard a car pull up outside their house. She watched from the window as a woman stepped out, dressed entirely in dark clothing with a white head covering. Her face was stern emotionless. She carried a small leather bag and walked with purpose toward their front door. Mary's mother had been nervous all morning, cleaning the house frantically, making sure Mary's brothers were out playing with friends. When the knock came, she rushed to answer it. "Sister Bernadette," Mary heard her mother say, her voice suddenly small and respectful. "Thank you for coming. Please come in." The woman entered without smiling. Her eyes swept over the modest sitting room, then landed on Mary, who stood frozen in the corner. "This is her?" the woman asked. "Yes, sister, this is Mary." Sister Bernadette approached, circling Mary slowly, examining her like one might examine a piece of furniture at a market. "How far along?" "We think about 4 months," Mary's mother answered quietly. "And the father?" There was a pause. Mary's mother's voice dropped even lower. "It was a family situation, a misunderstanding, but we need to handle this discreetly." "I see." Sister Bernadette's expression didn't change. "We can help. St. Catherine's accepts girls in her situation. She'll stay until the child is born. The baby will be placed with a good Catholic family who can provide properly, and afterward, Mary can return home purified and ready to start fresh." Mary's mother let out a visible breath of relief. "And no one will need to know?" "Complete discretion is guaranteed. As far as anyone needs to know, Mary has gone to stay with relatives in the country for health reasons." "Thank God," her mother whispered. "Thank God." Mary finally found her voice. "Wait, where am I going?" "For how long?" Sister Bernadette turned to her, and for the first time, Mary saw something in her eyes. Not cruelty exactly, but absolute certainty. The kind of certainty that allows no questions. "You're going to a place where you'll be looked after properly, where you'll work and reflect on your situation. When the child comes, it will go to a deserving family. Then you'll be free to return." "But I don't want to go anywhere, Mum, please." Mary looked at her mother desperately, hoping for some sign of hesitation, some maternal instinct to keep her daughter close, but her mother had already made up her mind. "It's for the best, Mary. You'll see. It's the only way. Mum, please don't send me away." "Enough." Sister Bernadette's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Collect a small bag of belongings. We leave in 20 minutes. Mary ran to her mother, grabbing her arm. "Please, I'll do anything. I'll hide. I won't leave the house. No one will see." Her mother pulled away, unable to meet Mary's eyes. "Go pack your things." 20 minutes later, Mary stood at the front door with a small cloth bag containing 2 dresses, undergarments, and the book she'd been reading from the library. The car door opened. Sister Bernadette gestured toward the back seat. "In you go." Mary turned back one last time. "Mum!" But her mother had already gone inside, closing the door behind her. No hug, no goodbye, no promise that everything would be all right. The car door shut with a heavy thud. As they pulled away from the curb, Mary watched her street disappear behind them. The small row houses, the corner shop, the park where she used to take her brothers. She didn't know she would never see any of it again. The drive took nearly 2 hours, winding through the Irish countryside on increasingly narrow roads. Sister Bernadette sat in silence the entire way, occasionally reading from a small prayer book. Mary pressed her face against the window, watching Dublin fade into rolling green hills, then into more isolated farmland. The further they drove, the more alone she felt. Finally, as the afternoon sun began to sink lower, they turned down a long gravel road. At the end stood a massive gray stone building, 3 stories tall, with small barred windows and ivy creeping up the walls. A high iron fence surrounded the entire property. St. Catherine's Laundry. The gate opened slowly as they approached, operated by an elderly woman in similar clothing to Sister Bernadette. Once inside, the gate closed again with a clang that made Mary jump. The car stopped. "Out!" Sister Bernadette commanded. Mary stepped onto the gravel, clutching her small bag. The air smelled different here, heavy with soap, damp stone, and something else she couldn't identify, something old and sad. As they walked toward the entrance, Mary noticed girls through some of the windows, young women in identical gray dresses and white aprons, moving like shadows through the corridors inside. The front door was thick oak, scarred with age. It opened into a dim entrance hall with stone floors that echoed with every footstep. This way, they climbed a narrow staircase to the second floor. The walls were bare except for occasional crucifixes and pictures of saints. Everything was gray or brown or faded white. Sister Bernadette stopped at a door marked 7 and pushed it open. "This is your room." The room was barely larger than a closet. A narrow metal bed with a thin mattress, a small table with a basin and pitcher for washing, a single chair, one tiny window set high in the wall, too high to see out of properly, with bars across it. A crucifix hung on the wall above the bed. That was everything. "You'll rise at 5 o'clock each morning when the bell rings," Sister Bernadette explained in a flat voice. "You'll wash, dress in the uniform you'll be given, and report to the laundry room. Work continues until 6 in the evening, with a break for lunch and prayers. Supper is at 6:30. Lights out at 9. No exceptions." Mary's voice came out small. "When can I go home?" "After the child is born and properly placed with an adoptive family, assuming you work hard and cause no trouble. Perhaps 6 or 7 months. 6 months. It seemed like forever, but at least there was an end point. Mary could survive 6 months if it meant going home. She didn't know she would remain there for 15 years. "Get some rest," Sister Bernadette said, turning to leave. "You begin work tomorrow at dawn." The door closed. Mary heard a key turn in the lock from the outside. She was alone. Mary sat on the edge of the narrow bed and placed her hands on her growing belly. In that moment, for the first time, she felt a flutter of movement. The baby, her baby. "It's you and me now," she whispered. "We'll get through this together. 6 months, then we'll go home." She didn't yet understand that home no longer existed for her. 5 o'clock the next morning, a loud bell clanged through the corridors, shocking Mary awake. "Everyone up! To the washroom!" a voice shouted from somewhere in the hallway. Mary stumbled out of bed, disoriented and exhausted. Her door was now unlocked. She followed the sound of shuffling feet and found herself in a line of girls. Dozens of them, all heading toward a large washroom with rows of sinks and basins. The water was cold. There was a single bar of rough soap that the girls passed between them. Mary washed quickly, the shock of cold water helping to wake her fully. Back in her room, she found a uniform laid on her bed, a shapeless gray dress and white apron, thick stockings and heavy shoes. Everything was worn and ill-fitting, but it would have to do. Another bell. "To the laundry room!" Now, Mary followed the stream of girls down to the ground floor and through a set of double doors. The heat hit her immediately, oppressive, humid, thick with steam. The laundry room was enormous. Rows upon rows of large washing tubs, drying racks, pressing tables, and folding stations. The ceiling was high but dark with moisture stains. Small windows near the top let in minimal light, and everywhere, girls working, scrubbing, wringing, hanging, pressing, folding, all in complete silence. An older woman in supervisor's clothing stood at the front. "New girl," she called out, spotting Mary. "You'll work at Station 12, washing station. Pay attention to the girl next to you and do exactly as she does." Mary made her way to Station 12, where another pregnant girl, maybe 16 or 17, was already scrubbing sheets in a massive tub of steaming water. "I'm Mary," she whispered. The girl glanced at her briefly. "Eileen, watch what I do." For the next several hours, Mary learned the routine. Take the soiled linens from the basket, scrub them hard against the washboard in scalding water. Wring them out, though her hands were too weak at first to squeeze out enough water, earning her a sharp rebuke from the supervisor. Hang them on racks to dry. Once dry, take them to the pressing stations, then fold them precisely, then stack them in perfect piles ready for pickup. The work was backbreaking. The steam made it hard to breathe. The soap burned Mary's hands, turning them red and raw within the first hour, and no one spoke. No one made eye contact. The only sounds were water sloshing, fabric being wrung, and occasional harsh commands from supervisors. At noon, a bell rang. Lunch, 30 minutes. The girls filed into a dining hall. Long tables with benches all worn smooth from decades of use. They lined up to receive their meal. A thin soup with a few vegetables, a slice of bread, water. Mary sat down next to Eileen, grateful for any familiar face. "How long have you been here?" she whispered when the supervisor's back was turned. Eileen kept her eyes on her soup. 3 years. Mary's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. 3 years! But they said, "They always say 6 months." Eileen interrupted quietly. "But it's never 6 months." "What do you mean?" "You work to pay for your room and board. But we don't earn any money. It all goes to debt. The cost of food, housing, the midwife when your baby comes, the care of the baby until adoption. They add it all up, and somehow the debt never gets paid." Mary's heart began to hammer in her chest. "But my mother signed papers." She was told, "Your mother signed you over to their care. Legally, they're your guardians until you're 18, or until they decide to release you, whichever comes last." The room suddenly felt smaller. The walls seemed to close in. But I have to go home. I have brothers. I have school." Eileen finally looked at her, and Mary saw something in her eyes that chilled her to the bone. Resignation. The absolute absence of hope. "This is home now," Eileen said quietly. "The sooner you accept that, the easier it gets." The bell rang. Lunch was over. Mary returned to the laundry room in a daze, her hands moving automatically through the motions of washing and wringing and hanging. But her mind was reeling. 3 years. Some girls had been here 3 years. How many had been here longer? She thought of her mother's face as the car pulled away. Had she known? Had she known this wasn't just temporary? The questions haunted her through the afternoon, through supper, through the evening prayers that all the girls were required to attend. That night, lying in her narrow bed, Mary placed both hands on her belly and felt the baby move again. "I'll get us out," she whispered in the darkness. "I promise I'll find a way." But deep down, a terrible fear was beginning to take root. What if there was no way out? Months passed in a blur of endless work. Mary's belly grew larger, making the labor more difficult. Bending over the washing tubs became agonizing. Lifting the heavy baskets of wet linens made her back scream in pain. Standing for 12 hours a day caused her feet and ankles to swell. But the work never changed. Pregnant or not, sick or not, you worked. One afternoon in September, a girl named Sinead, who was 8 months along, collapsed beside her washing station. She simply crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Mary dropped the sheet she was wringing and rushed over. "She needs help. Someone get help." A supervisor came over, looked down at Sinead with annoyed irritation, and said simply, "Take her to her room. She'll recover." 2 girls helped carry Sinead up the stairs. Mary followed, insisting, "She needs a doctor. She could be seriously ill." The supervisor turned on her sharply. "Hospitals ask questions. Doctors want to know names, families, how the girls ended up here. We handle medical situations ourselves. That's how it works." "But what if she dies?" The supervisor's face remained impassive. "Then we call the priest. Now, get back to work." Mary stood frozen in shock. That was it? That was all of Sinead's life was worth? That night, lying in her bed, Mary could hear Sinead's quiet sobs through the thin walls. The sound went on for hours. The next morning, Sinead's bed was empty. "Where is she?" Mary asked Eileen as they lined up for breakfast. "They moved her to the infirmary wing. She'll either recover or she won't. And if she doesn't," Eileen's voice was barely a whisper, "there's a small cemetery behind the chapel for the ones who don't make it." Mary felt her blood run cold. She placed a trembling hand on her own belly, feeling the baby kick. "Please," she whispered, "please stay strong. Please let us both make it through this." The baby kicked again as if answering. Mary made herself a promise in that moment. No matter what happened, no matter how hard it got, she would survive this. For her baby, for the life growing inside her that depended on her strength, she would not let them break her. October 15th, 1964. 3 o'clock in the morning. Mary woke to a sensation like nothing she'd ever felt before. A tightening across her entire belly, so intense it took her breath away. She lay still, hoping it would pass. It didn't. Another contraction came, stronger this time. Mary struggled out of bed and made her way to the door. "Hello?" She called out softly into the dark hallway, I think it's time. Within minutes, a night supervisor appeared with a lamp. She examined Mary briefly and nodded. Come with me. They walked through the silent corridors to a small room Mary had never seen before. It was barely furnished, just a narrow bed, a small table with towels and basins, and a single lamp providing weak light. Lie down, the supervisor instructed. I'll fetch the midwife. Mary climbed onto the bed, her heart pounding. She was frightened, terrified actually, but also strangely excited. After all these months of dread and hardship, she was finally going to meet her baby. The midwife arrived, a woman named Mrs. Brennan, who had been a resident herself decades ago and stayed on to help with births. First baby? She asked, her voice surprisingly kind. Mary nodded, unable to speak as another contraction gripped her. All right then, this is going to take some time. Just breathe through each wave. That's all you can do. Hours passed. The pain intensified beyond anything Mary had imagined possible. She gripped the sides of the bed, sometimes crying out, sometimes biting down on a strip of cloth Mrs. Brennan gave her. You're doing well, the midwife encouraged. Not much longer now. As dawn began to break outside the small window, Mrs. Brennan leaned forward. Next contraction, you push with everything you have. Understand? Mary nodded, exhausted beyond belief. The contraction came. Mary pushed, and then a sound that changed everything. A cry, high and strong and utterly perfect. It's a girl, Mrs. Brennan said, quickly cleaning the baby and wrapping her in a thin but clean blanket. A healthy girl. She placed the tiny bundle in Mary's arms. Mary looked down at her daughter's face, small and red and absolutely beautiful. 10 fingers, 10 toes, dark hair plastered to her tiny head, eyes squeezed shut, mouth open in protest at this new bright world. Hello, Mary whispered, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness now, but of overwhelming love. Hello, my beautiful girl. I'm your mother. She had chosen a name weeks ago. I'll call you Grace, she said softly, because you're my grace, my reason for everything. For perhaps 20 minutes, nothing else in the world existed. Mary counted each perfect finger, examined each tiny toenail, marveled at the softness of Grace's skin. She memorized every detail of her daughter's face. Grace opened her eyes briefly, dark blue, unfocused, but searching. Mary felt certain their eyes met, that Grace saw her, knew her. I love you, Mary whispered. More than anything in this world, I love you. Then the door opened. Sister Bernadette entered, her face as stern as ever. It's time, she said simply. Mary's arms instinctively tightened around Grace. No, please, not yet. Just a little longer. Mary, you knew this was the arrangement. The baby goes to the nursery. When the adoption is finalized, she'll go to her new family. But I'm her family. Mary's voice rose in desperation. I'm her mother. You're a child yourself, an unmarried child who cannot provide for a baby. The adoptive family has been selected. They're good people, established, with means to give her a proper life. I don't care. She's mine. You can't take her. Sister Bernadette's voice hardened. We can, and we will. It's already been decided. She reached for the baby. Mary pulled away, holding Grace against her chest. No, please, I'm begging you. Don't take my baby, please. Give her to me now, or I'll have someone remove her by force. Mary looked into Grace's tiny face one last time. Her daughter's eyes were closed now, her expression peaceful, trusting. She had no idea what was happening. I'm so sorry, Mary whispered through her tears. I'm so sorry. With shaking hands, she allowed Sister Bernadette to take Grace from her arms. The moment Grace left her embrace, Mary felt like part of her soul was being ripped away. She reached out instinctively. Wait, but Sister Bernadette was already walking toward the door. When can I see her? Mary cried out. When can I hold her again? Sister Bernadette paused at the doorway. You can't. It's better this way. A clean break. No, please, just let me know she's okay. Let me see her sometimes. But the door closed and Grace was gone. Mary collapsed back onto the bed, her arms empty, her heart shattered. She pulled her knees to her chest and sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to have no end. "Grace," she whispered into the empty room. "Grace, Grace, Grace." She said the name over and over until her voice gave out completely. The next day, Mary was sent back to work. Her body ached. She was still bleeding, still recovering from the birth, but there was no rest period, no recovery time. Work was work. Every day, Mary asked the same question: "Where is Grace? Is she still here? Has she been adopted yet?" The answer was always the same: "She's being cared for. That's all you need to know." Mary tried to find the nursery. She snuck away during lunch breaks, during the brief moments when supervisors weren't watching. But the nursery was in a locked wing, accessible only to certain staff. Once she managed to get close enough to hear babies crying through a door. Her heart leapt. Was one of them Grace? Was her daughter just on the other side of that wall? A supervisor found her there, back to work. Now, "I just want to know she's alive," Mary pleaded. "Just tell me she's okay. She's fine. Now go." Weeks became months. Mary never stopped asking, never stopped hoping for even a glimpse of her daughter. Then one day she was told, "Your child has been adopted. She's with her new family now." "Where? Who are they? Can I write to them?" No information is given. It's better for everyone this way. Mary felt the world tilt beneath her. Gone. Grace was gone, somewhere out in the world, being raised by strangers, and Mary would never know where. She tried to escape twice after that. The first time she made it as far as the front gate. She climbed over the fence in the middle of the night, tearing her dress and scraping her arms badly. But before she could reach the main road, they found her. She was dragged back, locked in a small room with no windows for 3 days, with only bread and water. "Attempt to leave again," Sister Bernadette warned, "and the consequences will be far worse." The second time was 6 months later. Mary managed to slip out during a moment of chaos when a delivery truck arrived. She ran through the fields surrounding the property, her heart pounding, certain that this time she would make it. She reached the nearest town, a small village with a few shops and a church. For a brief moment she felt the exhilaration of freedom. Then a woman outside a shop recognized her uniform. "You're from St. Catherine's, aren't you?" Before Mary could run, the woman had alerted the local priest, who telephoned the laundry. When they brought her back, they cut her hair short, a public humiliation, a visible mark of her attempted escape. From that point on, Mary stopped trying to leave physically. But she never stopped trying to leave in her mind. She dreamed of Grace every night. She imagined what her daughter might look like as she grew. 1 year old, 2, 3, 5, 10. The years blurred together. 1965, 1966, 1970, 1975. Mary was no longer a girl. She was a woman now, in her mid-20s, her hands permanently rough and red from decades of laundry work, her back bent from years of labor. Other girls came and went. Some were reclaimed by families who eventually forgave them. Some aged out and were released at 18. Some simply disappeared one day, and no one asked where they'd gone. But Mary became numb. She didn't cry anymore, didn't dream anymore, just worked day after day until 1979. Mary was 29. She'd been in the laundry for 15 years. But something inside her hadn't completely died. A small spark. A new girl arrived. Neve, 17, pregnant, scared. Mary saw herself in Neve. "Don't let them take your baby," Mary whispered one night. "How do I stop them?" "You run before you give birth. I'll help you." They planned for weeks. The gate was always locked, but the delivery truck came every Tuesday, picking up the clean laundry for hotels. One Tuesday morning, Mary and Neve hid inside the truck, under piles of sheets. The truck drove through the gate. They were free. They jumped out once the truck stopped in town, ran, didn't look back. Neve went to her sister in Cork, Mary. Mary had no family. Her mother had died years ago. Her brothers didn't want to see her. "You brought shame," they said. So Mary went to Dublin, found work as a cleaner, lived in a tiny room, but she was free, and she never stopped looking for Grace. Mary went to the laundry, asked for adoption records. "I want to find my daughter." "We don't give out that information." "She's my daughter." "You signed away your rights." "I didn't sign anything. I was 14. I'm sorry, we can't help you. Mary tried government agencies, adoption agencies. Everyone said the same thing. Records are sealed. For 30 years, Mary searched. She never married, never had other children. Her whole life was finding grace. In 2009, Ireland passed a law. Adoption records could be opened if both parties agreed. Mary applied, filled out forms, waited. A letter arrived. We have located your daughter. Her name is now Emma. She lives in England. She has been notified of your request. She has declined contact. Mary's heart shattered. Grace. Emma didn't want to meet her. Mary wrote a letter anyway. Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I'm your birth mother. I held you for 3 minutes. I loved you from the moment I saw you. I looked for you for 50 years. I understand if you don't want to meet me, but please know, I never wanted to give you up. They took you from me. I'm so sorry. I love you always. Mary. She never got a reply. September 2014. The news broke. 796 infant remains found in Tuam. Mary saw it on TV. Her heart stopped. Tuam. That was near where she'd been. She called the historian, Dr. Catherine Corliss. I was in a mother and baby home. My daughter, could she be? Dr. Corliss was gentle. What was your daughter's name? Grace O'Brien, born October 1964. Dr. Corliss checked her records, paused. Mary, I'm so sorry. There's a record here. Grace O'Brien died November 1964, 1 month old. Cause pneumonia. Mary couldn't breathe. She died. I'm so sorry. But they told me she was adopted. They said she was with a good family. They lied to many mothers. I'm so sorry. Mary hung up, sat in silence. For 50 years, she'd been searching for a daughter who died at 1 month old. All those years, all that hope gone. But then another thought. Emma, the woman who declined contact, who was she? Mary called Dr. Corliss again. If Grace died, who is Emma? Dr. Corliss didn't know, but she investigated and discovered the adoption agencies had falsified records, mixed up babies, sold some, lied to mothers. Emma might be someone else's daughter, or Grace might still be alive with a different name. Mary will never know. The Magdalene Laundries operated in Ireland from 1922 to 1996. Over 30,000 women passed through them. Thousands of babies were taken. Many died. Some were adopted. Some records were destroyed. In 2013, the Irish government issued a formal apology. Survivors received compensation, but no amount of money can give Mary back those 50 years, or her daughter. Mary is still alive. She's 74 now. She still hopes that maybe one day Grace will find her. This story isn't just about Ireland. It's about systems that punish victims, that hide abuse behind closed doors, that silence women. Today, forced adoption still happens in some parts of the world. Girls are still shamed for being pregnant. Institutions still hide the truth. But stories like Mary's remind us silence is complicity. Truth matters, and every person deserves dignity. If you or someone you know has experienced forced adoption or institutional abuse, organizations like Adoption Rights Alliance and Survivors of Institutional Abuse are here to help. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, because these stories need to be told. Remember, the past doesn't change, but how we respond to it does. It's in your hands.